Hello, everybody. Welcome in to SEC State of Mind presented by FanDuel. I'm your host, Taylor Davis, joined, as always, by the legend himself, Jason Campbell. We welcome you in, everybody. The regular season, championship Saturday, selection show. It's all in the rearview mirror. We know what postseason looks like for all of FBS. Much like the regular season, it was riddled with some controversy. So, of course, we're here to break it all down. A lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions, a lot of debate surrounding the final bracket for the college football playoff. And of course, you expected that with the way that the regular season was going. So many similar resumes and debate over what the committee was even leaning toward, because every week seemed to lean toward a different metric. And so I think a lot of that came out in a bit of frustration to some fan bases. So we're going to talk about all of it, kind of give you our thoughts on the good, the bad, the needs to change, which, of course, Jason and I are always super vocal about. And you got to assume that after a year like this, change is probably on the horizon. So it's a good time to talk about it. We also have results for Heisman finalists. We'll get into that, and we'll give you a little preview of what's to come in the first round of the college football playoffs. So welcome in, everybody. I welcome in my co-host, Jay Cam, who has been hard at work around Auburn, obviously super involved with the NIL and under now a new leadership regime down on the plains. National Signing Day is behind us as well. So not just Auburn specific, Jay, a lot of these SEC programs have been putting together new staffs, simultaneously bringing in a recruiting class for early signing day. So just kind of talk to me about the state of college football the last couple of weeks for the programs that weren't on a playoff run.
Yeah, the whole entire system needs to be changed. I think it's time to get with the new, let go of the old. And when I say that, I'm saying like signing day wasn't as big a deal as it's normally been in the past, where it used to be national televised. It used to be a big deal because, like, man, you get this kid, you got him for 3 to 4 years, you can develop him, and people that follow college sports or follow, the teams that you're rooting for, you say, "Oh man, we got that guy." And all of a sudden, you can start to follow that kid his entire career. But from year to year, every time the season's over with, it's like kids' minds go blank. It's almost like they forgot they played for you. They forgot that they went to university. It's like, I'm free game. Here you got to come recruit me all over again. And it's harder because you have to recruit the guys on your own roster. It's harder to do that than recruit the high school kids.
Right.
And you would think it's reverse, right? Since guys are already on campus, guys are already part of your university. It should be an easy conversation, but no, you have to recruit these kids super hard all the way through midnight most nights because other schools are coming after your kids. And
Totally.
I think now that kids are getting paid in college, which is an awesome thing, right? But at the end of the day, there got to be some rules and rules and regulations. What I mean by that is, back in the day when I played and before, you couldn't transfer within the conference without sitting out a year.
Yeah.
I think they need to go back to that.
I agree.
I think they need to go back to that rule that you can't transfer within the conference unless you sit out a year, or you have to go down to a group of 5 if you're in a Power 4 school. Because the simple fact, you couldn't even buy a burger or a hot dog for someone back in the day, or you got penalized, or the athlete got suspended. So okay, now that you're getting paid and they're getting paid well, everything has to come with a consequence. Right now, it's just open game, open market, and it's so much tampering going on. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And no one's gonna get in trouble for all the stuff because no NCAA doesn't want to get involved. I don't even know if they even care if kids graduate on time anymore, because every time you transfer, your credits don't always transfer. So it's just so much that's happening around the college sport to the point that people don't even want to play in bowl games, which we'll get to later.
Yeah.
But all these things are going on because there is no rules, no regulation. I think it's time for college football to get a commissioner. I think college football to unionize and come up with some form of a format And that's the only way the chaos stops. Or otherwise, we're going to lose our rival games.
Yep.
Because if a kid transfer from one school to the rival, it's not a rivalry no more. So that's what makes college football special, is the rivalries and the big time matchups that creates because of the history. We're going to
Yeah.
lose our history behind the game if we don't tighten up on these regulations of what you can do and can't do.
You're 100% right. I have received more texts this year than any year of my career of people being like, college football seems like it's not the same. And I can't really disagree with them. Like, there are just so many elements that have stripped away the very thing that made it so unique and so special. And look, it's not irreversible, right? Just because we opened all of the doors for change, which a lot of them are positive, you know, when you're looking at it net, we just didn't put everything in place to help it go swimmingly. We like opened it up to chaos. Okay, well, we just got to rein it in a little bit, put more barriers around this thing so that we don't rob ourselves of what made college football so great to begin with. And I think that a lot of that is going to have to be evaluated this offseason, in particular, the calendar being one of them. We have spoken, that's been such a hot button topic this year, but I think the coaching carousel being what it was this season and all of that coinciding with a playoff run to the point that now you've either got a team in the playoff that isn't being coached by who got them there, or you've got a team in the playoff that the head coach is wearing two hats. He is the head coach of two programs at the same time. And so it's just, this is not sustainable. If it is, we're heading toward a product that has nothing to do with what it was initially rooted in. So I totally agree with you. And I hope that some change is imminent, but you also got to assume that we're going to see some change with the college football playoff process, whether it's the selection committee, whether it's expanding to 16 teams. There is too much uproar around this. And I think at the end of the day, what everyone can agree on is that we don't have the 12 best teams in the nation competing for a national championship. And that is ultimately the entire purpose of the system. And it's not coming to fruition. So something's going to have to change with that. But let's talk about the bracket, which was announced on Sunday at the end of regular season / beginning of postseason, with conference championship results happening Friday and Saturday. Also, congrats to Georgia on winning the SEC championship convincingly over Alabama. We'll get to the controversy surrounding Alabama in just a minute. But your top four are number 1, Indiana, number 2, Ohio State, number 3, Georgia, number 4, Texas Tech. All 4 of those will be receiving first-round buys. I want to start there. Let's start at the top 4, because with the bye, we won't see them for a couple weeks. And I would say there was a little bit of controversy there. I know that people kind of brushed over it because it's like, you get the bye, you're probably going to see each other anyway, another round forward. But I really disagree with Georgia being 3, not 2. And that is not because I'm hosting an SEC podcast. I don't understand how, when you look at the strength of schedule of Georgia, you look at the way that they won. I understand that Ohio State was undefeated until that point. But Ohio State didn't beat a single team in the playoff field. They don't have a conference championship, but they're seated ahead of the SEC champion Georgia, who has wins over multiple teams, certainly in the top 25, but even those that were vying for one of the top 12 spots. 2 and 3 to me was backwards. Talk to me about the top 4.
Yeah, like you mentioned, the overall system, right? I thought JMU and Tulane, I feel like, should have played each other for a Group of 5 national championship, and the winner of that game this weekend goes to the playoffs to play with the Power Fours. That would have helped solve a lot of this, because now Notre Dame probably gets in, or Vanderbilt or Texas, right? We know it's 16 teams that happens, but make the 2 Group of 5 teams play each other for the championship to go play in the playoffs.
Sure.
You got 2 Group of 5 teams in there. So you're not getting the top 12. So it's supposed to be the 12 best teams. So that's problem number 1. Number 2 is, when you look at the whole overall format, if you got a Big Ten champion and an SEC champion, how does a loser of the Big Ten championship
stay above?
Like, that makes no sense to me. Like,
Yeah.
Georgia's been one of the hottest teams over the last month. They've been
Mm-hmm.
playing great football. I don't think anybody wants to play them at this point. And you win your SEC championship convincingly against another top 10 opponent,
Right.
and you beat how many this year? And you still stay number 3. I
Yep.
thought Georgia should have been number 2.
Agreed.
Indiana should have been number 1. And Ohio State should have dropped to number 3.
Totally agree.
Some will argue that they should have dropped to 4 and Texas Tech should have been 3. But, that's an argument there as well because Texas Tech won their conference. Texas Tech has had a good season all year long as well.
Right.
And maybe they should have been 3 and Ohio State 4. But
Texas Tech does have a loss to Arizona State, and Ohio State was undefeated. So I think they went straight to record, right? And if your only loss was to the number 1 team that has been deemed in your conference championship, I understand that being above because Texas Tech also beat BYU twice. Like they had the regular season win and the conference championship win, but that loss to Arizona State came back to bite them. Georgia being under Ohio State when their wins have been against teams that have gotten more of the committee's nods than Ohio State's opponents, other than Oregon. That one to me was convoluted. But regardless, those are your top 4. They'll get, the first round bye, which is incredibly valuable at this point. So then we look at the rest of the bracket, and this is where things got a little dicey. Number 5 is Oregon. Number 6 is Ole Miss. Number 7 is Texas A&M. Number 8 is Oklahoma. Number 9 is Alabama. I can't even say it without getting caught because I'm like, how? We'll get to it. Number 10, Miami. Number 11, Tulane. And number 12, JMU. And since you've already alluded to it, let's just start with the group of 5 conversation because the selection show spent a lot of time debating if that is the proper, and we did take a step forward. I want to reiterate to everybody because last year, the top 4 or the top 4 conference champions automatically got the top 4 spots, which was so ridiculous because you had a Clemson that was automatically in the top 4 when they didn't have a great season last year, but they won the ACC title game against SMU and they automatically get a first round bye. Made no sense. So we took a step forward by taking that part out of the equation, but the insistence upon top 5 ranked conference champions, I also don't know that because how much are conference strength really being evaluated? I know they're claiming that they are, but to your point, the Ohio State being higher than Georgia when I don't know that Big Ten SEC, comparison was really talked about a ton. I assume it is, but not how much is it at the forefront. So if we're not talking strength of conference, why do we automatically assume that 5 conference champions are better than some of the at-large bids? Because you've got depth in these conferences now. I mean, top to bottom, SEC, Big Ten, maybe not top to bottom, top to mid, SEC, Big Ten. These are all teams that could probably go on a run in December and January. You've got so many strong teams right now. And you're automatically going to remove a potential 2, like we see this year, being adamant about the 5 conference champions. And I think people have been confused on that because we're now getting 2 group of 5 in when it is expected to just be 1. But the ACC completely imploded over the course of season and your champion had 5 losses. So we don't deem you strong enough to be in, but we've already set the precedent that we've got to have 5 conference champions. So now we look to the Sun Belt. I think that is going to have to shift. Not just the group of 5 bid, but 5 conference champions. You're not guaranteed that all 5 of those are going to be best. We're seeing it this year.
The thing too, Georgia played Texas at home, right? And they beat them pretty good. Mm-hmm. Ohio State played Texas at the beginning of the season when Arch wasn't even seasoned yet and barely won. So if you're going off the eye test, then that puts Georgia at number 2.
Right.
If that's what you're saying. But then when you look at the overall picture, when you talk about the other schools and you just talk about the 5 conference wins, right? My whole thing is if this becomes a problem, then go back to divisions in your conference.
Yeah.
Where you, like in the SEC, there's an East, there's a West. So now you typically don't have the conflict of the 2 top teams not having the best records because you more than likely, you will have to have the best records to win your side of the conference to play in the conference title game. The same thing with the ACC, same thing with the Big Ten. Big Ten got lucky this year because the two best teams end up being Indiana and Ohio State playing each other. So they have to probably go back to divisions within the conference if you want to avoid this. But I still think an ACC champion winner deserves to be in over a group of five in the playoffs. Like
Interesting.
I just do. You know what I'm saying? If you put JMU or Tulane in the ACC, do they run through that conference like that? They probably would be the Duke in the conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you allow Duke then as the conference winner? They won the conference. So Miami sits at home and Miami's in the playoffs. So what does the championship games mean anymore? If I don't have to go and compete for my conference championship, which always used to be and still is in the NFL, you got to win your division, then you got to win your conference to represent in the Super Bowl. So in the college, it still should be the same. You got to win your conference to get into the playoffs to have a chance to go win a national championship. So I know it changes because the four bigs in the SEC, the four bigs in the Big Ten, and then you look at ACC. So I get it that you're going to have more than two teams from those conferences, right? I'm just saying you should be able to take your two best teams in your conference, that division, and say, okay, they go in. Now, who's my next two after those in the SEC and the Big Ten that deserves to be in? So then you take those two. Then you go to the ACC. You say, okay, who's my winner in the ACC? But what if the ACC had a stellar year? What if Clemson was good? What if Florida State was good? What if, all these other teams was good? And now you got to take, it's either four of those, but you can only get two of them in maybe. So now you have no room for a group of five. So you have to go to 16 immediately to be able to fix a lot of these problems. Because I think if you go to 16 and Notre Dame and either Texas or Vanderbilt is in, you will have a lot more people watching playoffs. Like at the end of the day, they won't say it, but it's still about money.
Yeah.
It's still about how can I get the most people to watch these college playoff games. And if Diego Pavia is in the playoffs playing against Notre Dame, who's not watching that game? If Arch Manning is in the playoffs playing against Notre Dame or playing against Pavia again for a rematch, who's not watching the game? Like, how many people are going to tune into the Tulane game? I will, because it's the playoffs, right? But how many people are going to tune into the JMU? The worst thing that can happen, Taylor, if they go out there and it becomes a blowout. If it's a blowout, like the teams that sit at home, yes, I'm sick to my stomach. And the reason I say that because in 2017, you punished an Auburn team that beat two number one teams back-to-back weeks at the end of the year, Georgia and Alabama, and they go and play Georgia again in the SEC championship game the next week. And because they lost, same score, you kick them all the way from 2-7. So there's no consistency within the system. And that's the biggest complaint is you had Notre Dame ranked ahead of Miami for how many weeks? And then all of a sudden the games are over and now Miami jumps Notre Dame. Now I get it. Miami won the head-to-head matchup. It was the first game of the season, right? So Miami has their argument. But if that's your argument the entire time, why did you rank Notre Dame ahead of Miami during the regular season?
Ever.
You could have fixed the problem by keeping Miami ahead of Notre Dame.
Yeah, that one was always a tough debate to me because how are we? And I get it. Like the ACC's tiebreaker system was not great, and so the fact that Duke was even in a championship game with 5 losses and Miami only had 2, it does seem a little convoluted. But because of who Miami lost to, you lost to Louisville and SMU, 2 teams that were not in contention for a playoff run. So like it's the same argument I have for Texas. Like, yes, you have the head-to-head with Vanderbilt, but you lost to Florida. You lost to a team that wasn't even in contention. And so that to me is where I get really stalled with Miami. And if we're sitting here saying that the ACC is a conference that wasn't even deemed strong enough for their champion to represent in the playoff, but a team that had losses so impactful that they couldn't even play in the championship game deserves an at-large bid. Like, there are contradictions left, right, and center, and I understand the head-to-head comes into play. But if we are strictly talking which of those teams had a better resume aside from that head-to-head, which I know you can't take any of those out, but I'm just saying, if you're talking resume, eye test, strength of record, Notre Dame gets the nod over Miami. So like I understood it, but it did contradict one of their metrics, which is head to head. And so if they were going to buck that, if they were going to say, you know what, but the other elements are pulling us stronger here, then you got to stick with that. The fact that it was flipped when neither team played a ball game the weekend before blew my mind. And by doing that, feeling like Miami had done enough, and those 2 losses to teams that are nowhere in the conversation we're okay with because they beat Notre Dame early enough by 1 point, 3 points, like a close margin, and we feel strongly about that. By proxy, BYU, a Big 12 champion Big 12 runner up, whose only 2 losses all season were to the Big 12 champion, are now on the outside looking in. But we are uttering the same sentence in the same show that Alabama does not deserve to be punished for the bonus round of championship Saturday, even though they got absolutely pummeled because their wins were stronger than BYU's. You're contradicting yourself in that statement alone. It either is looked at or it isn't. You said it was for BYU and you said it wasn't for Alabama. For Alabama to not even drop a single spot, but BYU is on the outside looking in of a playoff when their only 2 losses are to a team that very well could be hoisting a trophy by the end of the season. Texas Tech is that good. That alone shows the lack of consistency that we've got here.
Well, why wouldn't they just say this then? Since they said Alabama, based off their last regular season win, that they would deserve to be in after they beat Auburn, then go ahead.
A 5-win team.
Right. So go ahead and say, all right, the playoff format is set before the conference championship games.
Agreed.
So that's how you can solve a lot of that. Say, okay, these are the teams that are in the playoffs. Only thing the conference championship does, it can change your seeding within where you're seated at in the top 12.
Right.
So you're either playing your conference championship to win to get a bye, or you don't win. You fall a couple of spots. You got to play in the first week's playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
You can solve it by just naming it by the end of the season before the conference championship game. So that way, if someone's sitting at home, I get it. If I got to go play in a conference championship game and I'm in the game, but you get to sit at home on the couch and eat popcorn, and no one knows if you would have had a great game or not had a great game because you didn't even get the chance to even play in it.
Right.
How can you boot the team that actually played in the game?
Mm-hmm.
That could be my argument as well. Right. I get punished for doing what I needed to do to play an extra game, but you get rewarded for not being able to play in an extra game. So I don't like that either.
Yeah.
So to me, that's why I say go ahead and name your playoff teams the week before your conference championship. Because once your last regular season is over with, now you got your 12 teams. Here they are. So if you hadn't made it into a conference championship game, you're not sitting at home like, oh, I hope this team lose so I can get in. No, you should have did what you need to do during the season and win those games to be in the conference championship.
I totally agree with you because had BYU not played in the Big 12 championship, they would be sitting there, 11-1? Are they in? Probably. Like they're probably in with an at-large bid, even though they didn't play in the conference title game, over a 2-loss Miami team, losses to Louisville and SMU, when BYU's lone loss would have been to Texas Tech, the number 4 team in the nation. So the conference championship, but here's the caveat to that, Jay. If you go ahead and set the bracket before conference championships, what team is actually going to play their starters for a conference championship game when you know you've got a playoff run ahead?
You're still playing for the bias. So if that bias,
okay,
if you get a chance to sit out that first week and not have to play in the first week round of playoffs, and you get a chance to get your guys healthier, like you got some guys banged up at the end of the season, you like, okay, the winner of this Georgia-Bama game is probably going to finish top 2 seed. So the winner gets a chance to get a bye, but the loser got to play the next week. So you're going to play your butt off because you want to have that bye the next week.
Yes, but then you're kind of getting back to the initial format of your conference champions all being the top 4, because are you really going to watch those 2 on an extra weekend and then be like, no, Ole Miss, who was sitting down this week not playing, deserves the bye over these?
That's what I'm saying. So what's the purpose of me now shooting to make the conference championship?
What's the point in having conference championships? That's the question.
Well, at that point in time, you're going to have to go away with conferences, and all of a sudden this is going to become however they want to do it to the point where you do it like the NFL then.
Yeah.
Like you have divisions, and here's your AFC North, here's your AFC West. Here's your AFC East, here's your AFC South, and same
Yeah.
thing for the North side. And then all of a sudden you take teams out of there, and that's how you end up forming your playoffs. And everything's about getting to so you can win your division, right?
Yeah.
So you win your division, you become your division champions, and then after you become your division champions, now you're seated in the playoff bracket. And then now all of a sudden you're playing for a national championship the same way you get to the Super Bowl.
Right.
So they
Like,
probably should just take the same format, and instead of just having SEC and
yeah.
and Big Ten, just break the country up into AFC. I mean, Big South, however you want to call it, Big
Yeah.
Southeast, Big Southwest, all these, however, and Big Ten North, or however you want to do it.
Everything big.
However you want to do it, just break it up.
I mean, at least then we go back to like geographical relevance for all of these cross-country road trips that are happening during the regular season. That doesn't feel sustainable either. I mean, the other option that has been thrown out is a playoff for like the Power Four and a separate playoff for the Group of Five, because that level, the same way that we've got an FCS playoff, happening for FCS teams, like there's different levels. And so to have postseason potential for every level seems to make more sense than trying to like fix it. However, I'm not disagreeing that, the American has been incredibly strong. I think these first round games are going to be very telling, because you're right. If you've got these on-campus games, like super exciting, and they are absolute blowouts, and we're pulling starters by the second half, why are we giving participation awards out for a college football playoff run, especially when everything was so close and there is an argument for so many other teams? I would argue BYU, Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, and Texas all have an argument that I can actually get on board with. Like, I hear arguments for all four of those teams, and I'm like, you're right. Like, I think all four of those have a reason to be vying for a national title, and they're not. And JMU and Tulane are. And so it's just unsettling. And you bring up the point about the business element and the money and the eyeballs, and that's all very much in the conversation. But my issue is the best 12 teams are not in the playoff bracket. The top 12 teams in the nation right now that could seriously, and I know you got to look at the full body, but the best teams also improve over the course of the year. So like, who's peaking right now? I would not want to play Vanderbilt right now. Did you see what they did in Knoxville to Tennessee? They are playing their best ball right freaking now. So to see some of those teams not have a shot in this bracket format because we gave out honorable mentions, I have a really big problem with.
And I totally agree. Like, the whole thing is to get the 12 best teams, then put the 12 best teams in there.
Right.
Like, it goes back to when kids are growing up, and if you give kids participation trophies, then they never have the desire to want to get better, right? Yeah. Because they like, well, I'm gonna get an award anyways. No, that's not what we do here. Like, right. I respect the Group of Five. They have great teams in the Group of Five. Think about it. You had 4 coaches that came from the American Conference that just got big deals this offseason to go coach at Power Fours. So there's a lot of respect for the Group of Fives, right? I'm just saying they don't play the same schedule as the teams that are sitting at home.
Totally.
And if you're going to do that, if you're going to punish teams for playing tough schedules, then what's the purpose of scheduling all these games? What's the purpose?
They're not gonna anymore. Yeah.
So at some point, you got to say, hey, look, we're going to make JMU, and if you want to do it, make JMU and Tulane play each other for, like I said, for the national championship of Group of Five, and then take one of those teams and put them into the playoff system.
Yeah.
You still get one instead of two. 2 should never be in there. Like, you're hosing somebody for playing tough games and tough schedules, like the 3 that's sitting at home right now.
And I think this year is going to be viewed as potentially an anomaly, but it may make them reevaluate. Like, okay, if we want to value the conference champions, we may only need to grant 4 automatic bids, because I think the expectation was that all of the Power 4 champions are going to be in, and then we need 1 extra so that we have 1 Group of 5 in there. This year showed the Power 4 is not guaranteed. Had Texas Tech and BYU not had the years that they had, who would have been, a contender in the Big 12, really. So you're not guaranteed to have Power 4 champions as one of the top 12. I think this year showcased that. So 5 conference champions may not be necessary. Maybe you back it up to 4 conference champions. Your top 4 ranked conference champions all get a bid, and we expand this thing to 16. And whether there's play-in or like a wild card round, which was attempted. I mean, Vanderbilt was trying so hard to get a game on the schedule this past weekend and put something else out there for the committee to look at, which I would have loved. I mean, let's see Miami and Vanderbilt in a play-in game, the weekend of conference championships. Like, that's an option too.
You can call them, that's the wild card games, right?
Yeah.
You win those games to get, solidified into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Or to continue. So essentially the playoff starts
the weekend of conference championships.
So I like the fact of just going to 16 games because there's so many universities and everything. It's so many football programs, and it's hard to group them all into 12 at the end of the day. I think if you go to 16 teams and the top 4 teams, of course, on a bye, right? So you got those teams on a bye. There's ways to get this done in a timely manner so that you're not playing all the way until the end of January like the NFL.
Right.
So you probably got to start your season a week or 2 earlier in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Get your season started earlier. And, and then, like I say, you still get a chance to get your 2 buys in there that they like to have. So, but you got to move it up. And bowl games is a whole nother thing now, because bowl games has become irrelevant if you're not in the playoffs to the kids, it feels like, right? Because all the focus is on the playoff game. So now kids, bowl games used to mean a lot. I used to have so much fun growing my teammates during bowl practices because you practice and then you get to go do stuff together as a team.
Yeah.
And, it's more than just the practice. It's the bond, it's the brotherhood, it's the, you get all this extra time to do things together. So I just feel like kids are missing out because, one, they're getting paid already, right? So when they get to a bowl game, like, oh, it's just a bowl check, I'm not gonna play.
Yeah.
So it's just, you're gonna have to push bowl games to the beginning of the season and say, hey, look, we're gonna create matchups. And just follow me on this one, Taylor.
I know. I'm like, what?
You put bowl games at the beginning of the season. You say, hey, Auburn, or, you're going to play Notre Dame in the Orange Bowl. Say the Orange Bowl, want to take these 2 teams, play them in the Orange Bowl. That's your season opener. But it's called the Orange Bowl. Now the money goes to the NILs for those schools, right? So if you're in Atlanta, you say, hey, Atlanta wants to take Texas and Michigan. We're going to play you in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl in Atlanta. The proceeds go to the NIL for Texas and Michigan. So you create the matchups that you want to create, but no one's sitting out because now these schools get the NIL money off of them, but the games are their openers for the season. So it's just like creating matchups that you want everybody to watch. That's what they did back in the BCS system, pretty much. They created a system where they try to get the teams to end up playing each other that everybody wanted to watch. And it wasn't a playoff. So now, with all this sitting out, Notre Dame not wanting to play in the bowl game because they didn't make the playoffs, okay, you have a bowl format at the beginning of the season. At the end of the year, there is no bowl games. It's just the playoffs.
I hear you, and I guess the way that we're trending right now, it's a relevant, suggestion. My thing is, though, like the bowls are supposed to be your cherry on top of your season. I mean, like, having called games, I mean, like, the bowl gifts that these guys are getting, like, is ridiculous, and the experience, and they get to do a lot of stuff away from the game in the city, and like, it's an experience. And, I don't know how much of that could really be enjoyed as much if it's the beginning of your season, because you've got to be so locked in. Whereas when it's at the end of your season, it's like, this is your last go around with your brothers. And that's really the element, Jay, that stuck out to me in Notre Dame's decision. And obviously there's a lot of debate around it right now. Obviously, Notre Dame felt very confident that they had done enough and given what the rankings had been like in weeks prior, they were on the inside. So they felt they were going to be in the playoff. And when they weren't, they were blindsided. And I think through an emotional decision, decided to decline a bowl game, and thus their season is over. That team will never play together again. And I thought about how many kids played their last game and did not know it was their last game. How many parents sat in the stands and watched their kid play, or in the band or cheer or whatever, like the training staff, like how many of those people it was their last and they didn't know it was their last. Like you're ending it to make some statement, and I think it's backfiring on you a little bit, because it's not presenting a positive example of what sportsmanship looks like. It's setting a bad precedent that you pout and walk away when things don't go your way. Like, it just, I hate that, but also for the amount of people that were robbed of their last. I hate that element, and I think that bowls and conference championships are seriously hanging in the balance right now.
Yeah, the thing about Notre Dame is you should play in the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're already at the point where we're asking each other outside the playoffs if bowl games even matter anymore, because so many kids sit out of them. I think someone was arguing that Art should sit out the bowl game. Why? He's not going pro this year. He hasn't announced that he's going pro. Like, no, he need to be out here with his teammates. What makes him better than any of his other teammates that's on the team?
Right.
Like, so you start to do this, you start to single out players to make them feel like they're better than other players on the team. This is a team sport. It's not an individual sport. But that's the narrative that we're starting creating, right? Even in NIL space and everything. Like, these are still amateur athletes that are still growing and trying to become the top of their profession. But sometimes you get in trouble making guys feel like they're better than the entire team. And you can't do that. Like, it's still a team, and these are still young kids that are still growing.
Mm-hmm.
In this matter, when the school decides, oh, we're not going to play in the bowl game, you didn't even give the kids a voice, right? They're the ones that put the pads on every day. They're the one that practice every day. They're the one that has to go through it, and they the one that love the game because they're in it. But you don't even give them a voice to even maybe vote on it as a team or not. You just say, we're not playing in the bowl game because we didn't make the playoffs. That's a bad precedent to set.
Well, and if the players did say that, Jay, like if it was an open dialogue, it's on leadership to be like, no, guys, that's not how we respond to this.
Right. And the kids, like I was saying, so at least they have a voice. But at the end of the day, though, you should play the game. Like,
Yeah.
to be able to play football and to be able to have a gift given to you, which is the athletic ability to go out and play in front of 90,000, 100,000 people, millions of people watching on TV. It's a gift given to you.
Yeah.
There are so many kids in the world that don't get a chance to play a sport, don't get a chance to get paid NIL, don't get a chance to even just walk down the street, don't get a chance to just wake up in the morning and just do what they want to do because physically they can't do it.
Yeah.
But here we are, spoiled. We get everything we want. We get a chance to do what we love to do, and we get paid to do what we love to do. But then we can't give the fans and the audience, the people that support us, a show.
Yeah.
Because we're pouting and we decide we want to go home. But what about the fans that pay money every game to watch you come and play? People that buy plane tickets, train tickets, get gas to travel, hotels to come and watch you guys play football and everything to support you, which ultimately affects the reason you're getting paid, because you have fans.
Right.
So a lot of this have gone to the side where we poke our chests out like the world evolves around us and nothing else matters. That's my problem with college sports right now as a whole. That's my problem with sports in general right now. It's the fact that we forget the people that support us, and we're starting to make it all about us. It doesn't even matter anymore in the schools about the system of the schools. If a kid graduates, you know how many times I get a parent to ask me, hey, what's the majors that are being offered at your school, and how can he graduate in 4 years? It's no. How fast can I get to the NFL in 3 years?
Yeah.
How much money can I make within 3 to 4 years? It's nothing about how can I grow as a person and human being,
Yeah.
understanding, hey, money will find you if you do what you're supposed to be doing. If
Hmm.
you go looking for it, more than likely you're going to lose it and it's never going to get to you.
Right.
So we got a bad precedent of what we're setting right now in college football. And in Notre Dame, you are a high class program and has been for many years. What you just done has told other people, but I saw the Big 12 come out and they fined two schools 500,000 for declining to go in the bowl game.
Hmm.
Notre Dame can't get fined because they're not in the conference. So
Yeah.
I think this may drive them to get to a conference because at the end of
Mm,
the day, you got to win the games you're supposed to win because you're picking individual schedules.
mm-hmm.
So if you're not going to play in a conference, this is the consequence of what happens for you not being part of a conference. So
I agree.
get into a conference and you may not have to go through this again.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's programs like BYU who could very much feel slighted, and I felt slighted on their behalf because even if I understood the strength of schedule was such a glaring difference between Alabama and BYU in similar situations, but it was discussed in a very contradictory way on the show. It was repeatedly said that Alabama should not be punished for their performance in the championship game. But then the chair of the committee, Hunter Yurchek, who unfortunately has been under a great deal of fire since assuming the role of chair, was being interviewed and said that they felt BYU's performance in the Big 12 championship game just wasn't strong enough to make them give BYU another look. So you were using it as an evaluation tactic. And again, I think there were very glaring differences in strength of schedule that ultimately hindered BYU, and that's fine and dandy. But then you can't claim that it's not an evaluation metric for Alabama, who got embarrassed. That game wasn't even competitive. I don't even think the score, which is embarrassing, I don't even think the score paints the picture of how bad they looked. And guess what? Bama hasn't looked good in 5 weeks. Bama didn't look good the entire month of November. Okay. So I don't understand the disparity of evaluation tactics that is being pointed out. And it just is an indicator that this thing is not a fine-tuned machine, to the point that we even contradict ourselves on the selection show is indicative of the bigger issue, that it flip-flops every week. It flip-flops every season. There is still human error and bias that is very much at play in that boardroom. And ultimately, we've got a system that is not putting the best 12 teams in the nation in the format, and that sucks. However, I do think when we get down to the final round, we're going to have teams that all seem equipped to win a national championship. I do think the excess will get weeded out, but moving forward, we've got to have a better system so that some of these teams that are on the bubble have a shot.
We have created a mess. And let's just say this. When I was part of the BCS system, when Auburn was part of the BCS system, we got screwed out of playing in a national championship game, right? So then the argument was we need to create this playoff system. And then we do create the playoff system. Now it was not enough teams in the playoff system. Now we're continue to expand the playoff system. So at the end of the day, if you're going off the eye test, then BYU nor Alabama deserves to be in the top 12. In my opinion, if you're going off the eye test.
Okay.
But if you're going off these guys made to the conference championship, they shouldn't be punished, then BYU and Alabama should have been in the top 12. If that's your argument. But if you're going off the eye test and that's what you're saying, then neither one of those teams should be in, because Texas Tech blew the doors off of BYU and nobody wants to see them a rematch in the playoffs.
Right.
Georgia beat the doors off of Bama, even though Bama beat Georgia in Athens earlier in the year. I think that's the difference between the two, right? Texas Tech beat BYU twice.
Yep.
Georgia and Alabama split.
Right.
That's why Bama still got in and BYU didn't. So,
but Bama lost to Florida State, and we don't even talk about it.
We don't even talk about it. It's like a non-thing, right? But then you turn around now, Bama plays Oklahoma. They know everybody's going to watch the rematch.
Yeah,
right? It's going to be interesting. So at the end of the day, like the eye test tells you those two teams shouldn't be in the top 12, but one is at home, one lost to the team twice, the other one split the matchup. That's why they're in. But it's still crazy to me, Taylor, that this is a conversation that's go on throughout playoffs. I think once you get through the first round, it's gonna get really fun.
I do too.
Some of these matchups gonna be really fun.
I
The one
I
that's
think the first round matchup, Miami Texas A&M, will
yeah,
be
that's gonna be a good one. I wish it was
great.
a night game. They put it at 11 o'clock
I know.
game.
In Kyle Field, come on.
I feel at nighttime would have been
Yeah,
everybody in the world would have been watching that one. I just think Ole Miss to me is they're the one to keep an eye on, right? They Lane's not there.
right.
That plays a big part in what they do. But their offensive coordinator came back to coach them through the playoffs. And
Yes.
now for the other coaches that was there that went with Lane are now back there helping them through the playoffs.
Yep.
The kids got a chip on their shoulder. They got an experienced quarterback who's already had a chip on his shoulder since he started the season.
Hmm.
They have nothing to lose because everybody expects them to lose.
Right.
Keep an eye on Ole Miss.
I like it. You also get your first game at home in a rowdy environment, no, because you know that fan base is going to have a chip on their shoulder too. After Lane, publicly called them out for having, a bad home field advantage, they're about to be like, okay, Lane, this is what you're missing out on. I know good and well the Grove's going to be lit up. And you've got a team that you already beat 45-10. Now, I will say Tulane looks much better now than they did when they played them the first time. I think they figured out their identity. They really kind of found more of a rhythm. And John Summerall, you all know how I feel about John Summerall. I think very highly of him. He's going to have that team prepared. But I agree with you. I think that there is so much momentum that Ole Miss is going to be able to take from a first-round game at home against a group of 5 opponent that they've already beat, that they are going to be one to watch for sure. But let me pull up the bracket, because if they win that, they will have to play Georgia. Mm-hmm. And that's where I, again, hate that Georgia was not 2, because I would have loved for the SEC on SEC matchups to not happen so quickly.
Right. I agree. That's why if Georgia was 2, then Ole Miss would probably be playing Ohio State. And a lot of people would have wanted to tune into that game, right?
And I would love to see Ohio State against an SEC team at this point. Like, I know they faced Texas week 1, but I want to see what you got now, because there were so many games this season. Our friend David Pollack brought it up on his show that Ohio State's resting their starters just because they can in the Big Ten. No disrespect, but the top is very strong, but you weren't, having to gut out wins against everyone in your conference like the SEC teams were.
Yeah, Ohio State, we've been saying that for years.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, Michigan, before Oregon got involved in the Big Ten. Now you can throw Oregon in there. They don't have the gauntlet of a schedule. And I heard Dan Lannon come out and say something about the SEC teams the week before they played their rival games. Look, we play USC, who, trying to take a shot at the SEC. Dude, go play the whole schedule. That's why he won't even come coach in the SEC. You know what I'm saying? Because he's been offered opportunities. Yeah. Because he knows it's a tougher gauntlet of a schedule to get through. He has, and the Big Ten is not easy, but he has an easier slate to get to the playoffs and compete for a national championship than he would if he was coaching in the SEC.
Yeah. Now, Ohio State's first game could be against Texas A&M if A&M takes care of Miami. So they will have to see an SEC team fast. And that is one that I keep saying I don't want to give up on the Aggies. Like, I know they dropped the last one to Texas, but that could almost be what benefits them. Like, that loss right there at the end to their rival could be the very thing that Mike Elko used as that last little ticker into the echelon of football that you deserve to be in. I still believe they're incredibly talented and very equipped to go on a run, but boy, what a tough path that they have. You've got Miami to start, who definitely feels like they have something to prove. And then potentially your second is going to be Ohio State, who is deemed good enough to still be above the SEC champion. So plenty of good games ahead. Let me ask you one question as we kind of wrap this one up. We'll do more of a deep dive into the first round matchups next weekend or next week on that episode ahead of the first weekend. The one team that you feel I'm just going to say deserved is the strongest team on the outside that you think could have made a run if they were put in the bracket. One team, because there's quite a few being debated.
I'm going to have to go with the guy that might have the opportunity to host the Heisman Trophy, Vanderbilt.
Me too, Jay. That is my
They're
answer.
playing hot. They're trending in the right direction. They got a quarterback that drives their football team,
Yep.
and he has the mindset of, kind of the little man, like take it to the big boys type mentality.
It's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the
Yeah,
size of the heart in the dog.
it's a 300, right? He feel like he can take his guys and go against anybody.
Yeah.
You watch the movie 300. Pavia feels like he's that guy that can lead his group into any place and win. That's what makes that team dangerous.
I
And
know.
the fact that they're not in there kind of makes me like, dang it, we're missing something.
Especially when their losses to Alabama and Texas, both on the road and both by like small, I mean, like had they fallen on that onside kick, had they small little details, not like a BYU who got beat very convincingly. You know what I mean? So that one is what stings for me. And I just felt like at the beginning of season, if you went 10-2 in the SEC, you were probably going to be in. Like I just really I can't believe that this is the reality. And it again goes back to 5 conference champions, I think impacted a lot of teams that deserved an at-large bid. Like Vanderbilt isn't in, can't be in because we have to have 2 spots for a group of 5 teams. So I hate that. But with that reality and the potential Heisman winner, Clark Lee is going on record when asked about bowl games and said, of course we didn't consider sitting out. We love playing football around here. That is what it should be. That is what it should be. And Notre Dame will likely be in this situation again. They will likely be a playoff team next year.
Match Notre Dame and Vanderbilt up in a bowl game.
You don't know that this is not a guaranteed level of play for Vanderbilt. There's going to be a lot of new next year. And so if anyone could have pouted, it could have been Vandy. But they're like, no, we're of course playing. And go ahead.
I would like to see Vandy and Mendoza. I mean, Vanderbilt, Pavia play Mendoza and Indiana.
You would have wanted that in a playoff?
I would have wanted that in the playoffs.
Dang.
Because you got 2 guys that are going to New York.
Yeah.
Vying for the Heisman Trophy. And Ole Miss has beat Tulane 45-10. Now, it may not be that same score because Lane's not there. But at the end of the day, they beat them 45-10. That's not the matchup that everybody's going to be like, oh, I got to watch. But Vandy and Indiana in round 2, you've had Vanderbilt to go play Ole Miss this year. Like in the first round, Vandy and Ole Miss. Who wouldn't have watched that game?
Yeah. Indiana's going to get the winner of Alabama, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'm just saying because it would have been changed if Vanderbilt got in. So
yeah, I was just processing that. That is very true. Okay, real quickly, and then we're gonna put up some odds of teams. But the Heisman finalists have been announced. You've got Notre Dame's Jeremiah Love, Julian Sayem from Ohio State, Fernando Mendoza from Indiana, and Diego Pavia, Vanderbilt. If you had a vote, who's getting it?
My vote would be Pavia.
Mm-hmm.
The person that's going to win it is Mendoza because the way they came back and won in the Ohio State game, and he won this conference championship, and they're the number 1 ranked team in the country, is the reason he's going to win it.
I don't like that.
If you give it to the best player, which is the Heisman is supposed to be, then you have to give it to Pavia because he's the one that impacted his team. When has Vanderbilt ever been 10-2? It's the first time ever. And
crazy.
They did it with not playing an easy schedule.
In one of the most competitive years of the SEC.
Right. And the goal of a Heisman is you're supposed to make your team play at an elite level.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what he did. He elevated his team to play at an elite level in a tough schedule.
I also just have a little bit of a gripe with the Heisman, not that anyone cares, but leaving Texas Tech linebacker Jacob Rodriguez out of the finalists is an absolute crime. Like, we have not seen a season like this from a defensive player in decades, if we ever have. This guy started as a quarterback at Virginia, became a walk-on at Texas Tech, and is now literally wreaking havoc every single week. This guy embodies what the Heisman is supposed to be about, but because he's on the defensive side, I hate to say it, but it just feels like that's the reason he's getting overlooked. I think he was absolutely robbed, and Jacob Rodriguez is a Heisman finalist. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. But
it's sad because the Heisman has just become like a quarterback
contest. And like you just said, the quarterback of the best team. Like, go ahead and give it to him.
You might well just name it the quarterback award, because there are other people. Jeremiah Love had a great season this year. Running the ball for Notre Dame. It's almost like you don't even have a chance if you're not a quarterback. I know last year, it went differently. But at the end of the day, most of the time, if you go back for the last 25, what is it, 20 or 25 or 21, 25 has been quarterbacks.
Yeah. So, and this is coming from a quarterback. So, it's true.
The best player.
Yeah.
The best impact player.
Mm-hmm.
But every time you look at the list, even preseason, is always the quarterbacks up there. Yes, quarterbacks has a lot to do with winning and losing. But at the end of the day, we're missing out on not giving other kids an opportunity to win the Heisman.
100%.
And what's the name won the Heisman? I'm going blank. I don't even know why I'm going blank. Won the Heisman last year because he played
Travis Hunter,
because he played both sides of the
ways.
Ball.
Yes.
And he was the only one to do that since Charles Woodson.
Yeah.
I'm saying, so I don't know. Like, let's get back to giving it to the best player that impacts the game, and not just the quarterback award.
Yes. And you want to talk about impacting a freaking game. Jacob Rodriguez has been everywhere. That is an absolute crime that he is not going to be in New York. But I'm with you. My vote would go to Diego Pavia as well. That guy has had every freaking impact imaginable everywhere he's been. Like, he won at New Mexico State, let's not forget, and then comes to the SEC and makes Vanderbilt, a school that never got talked about in football conversations, a playoff team. Unfortunately, they're not in it, but they are a playoff team, and in large part because of Diego Pavia. But best of luck to all the Heisman finalists. That'll be announced this Saturday night. Like I said, we've got some odds from FanDuel, our partners that make this show go, as far as the teams and their odds to win this thing. So you've got Ohio State, Indiana, Georgia, Oregon, Texas Tech, Texas A&M, Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. We're missing two. I digress. The group of 5 ones are not even on here, and that just is going to continue to increase the conversation around that reality of this. Jay, obviously, lots to be seen, and we will break down these matchups a little bit more. Give me 2 teams that you've really, as of right now, without seeing any playoff games, your top 2 teams most likely to hoist the trophy.
Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to say Georgia, Ohio State.
Okay.
I was going to say A&M, but I can't be SEC biased.
I know. I really want to ride so hard for Texas A&M. I have just been so on board with their team this year, but getting past Miami and Ohio State, like, they may have the hardest path to the title game. So that one's going to be tough. But I've seen Texas Tech firsthand. I had their last regular season game against West Virginia, which was an absolute blowout. That team is ridiculous. That defense, there's no better defensive front in the country. So any quarterback that goes against that defensive front is going to have a tough day. And then Jacob Rodriguez in the middle commanding everything. The offense is the question mark, but the defense, if the defense wins championships, I have a hard time picking against Texas Tech. So we're going to find out. But Georgia looks primed for a run as well. But we are going to have you prepped and ready for all of the first round matchups next week on our episode as we gear up for round 1 of college football playoffs, which will be Friday and Saturday of next weekend. So make sure you come on back next Tuesday for another episode of SEC State of Mind. Again, huge shout out to our sponsor FanDuel for making the show happen and for our partners at Believe. So if you like our podcast, please make sure you subscribe wherever the heck you listen to us. If it's the podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, you can find us anywhere. Please subscribe. Leave a 5-star review. We like 5 stars around here. And over on YouTube as well, Believe's YouTube channel, you can always find us in video format. Make sure you leave a comment, interact with us a little bit, and come on back next week to break down round 1 of the college football playoff. Everyone enjoy your weekend ahead. The Heisman show will be on Saturday night. FCS playoffs are this weekend, so you still got some football as well as Army-Navy. Everybody loves that game. And we'll talk to you next Tuesday. Peace out.
Peace.